Jack Malcolm here, and this video is about Max Cred factor number 6, which is commitment. Now, some of the greatest and most influential people in history have won millions of followers, not only during their time, but even after their time, because of their unquestioned commitment to their cause. People see their sacrifice, they see their passion, and they look up to them as a result. Commitment can make you extremely credible. So what do I mean by commitment? Four things. First of all, commitment is about involvement. It's involvement so deep into a cause, a team, or a project that you can't help but become an expert in that area and to be recognized as an expert by other people. Commitment also sometimes is about courage. It's about courage to stand up for something you believe in, even when it's unpopular or costly. Commitment is also about contribution. People who are deeply committed to a cause seem to be the ones who are the first to volunteer. They're the ones who put in the most hours. They're contributing to the team. And finally, commitment is about consistency. When you care about something and you care about it over time, your message becomes consistent. People see your actions and your words tend to really be consistent with each other, and that certainly demonstrates credibility. So let's talk a little bit deeper about how commitment demonstrates credibility. And once again, I want to use Aristotle's three dimensions. First of all, how does commitment show good sense? I mean, sometimes you can be so committed to something that it doesn't show good sense, but let's talk about the positives here. There's a magical thing that happens when you get involved into something that you deeply believe in. You start learning more and more about it, and after a while, you're almost absorbing it through your pores. You become an expert very quickly, even if it's difficult, because you spend so much time with it and you really care about it. And as you get stuff in your mind, it gets easier and easier to learn much more about it. Now, I had a vivid demonstration of this myself just a few weeks ago. I'm deeply involved in some community things, and I've been fighting a development in my neighborhood. And we had a neighborhood meeting with about 40 people there, and our city commissioner came, and people were asking him questions. But I was actually adding on to some of his answers because I knew so much about it. And it got to the point that as people asked him questions, he would answer the question, and then he would turn to me and say, "Do you have anything to add?" So afterwards, one of the people in the audience, who was an attorney himself, came up and said, "What's your background? Have you got a background in planning and zoning law?" And of course I don't, but because of the fact that I was so committed, I became the expert in the room, and I had a tremendous amount of credibility. Now, the nice thing about that is that as you become recognized by other people as an expert, people who care about the cause but aren't as deeply committed as you start feeding you information, and pretty soon it becomes self-reinforcing. So the more information you get, the more information other people give you, and so on and so on. So it becomes a virtuous circle. How does commitment show good character? Well, obviously, when somebody is committed to a cause that others admire and is willing to do the work and is willing to make the sacrifices and take the risks that other people won't, that elevates them in people's mind. People almost feel guilty, so they almost feel like they're compelled to give you credibility. And finally, how does commitment demonstrate goodwill? Two ways: contribution and familiarity. Contribution, when you're committed, you are giving into the team, you're putting in the hours. It's like you're giving a gift to everybody else who cares about that topic but isn't working as hard as you are. So the ideal of reciprocity definitely kicks in. People want to give back to you, and one of the things they're going to give back to you is A, their liking, and B, they're going to impart credibility to the words that come out of your mouth. Second is familiarity. And familiarity trades on a phenomenon in our minds that's really interesting. Our minds tend to like familiar things. There's been studies that have been done where people have flashed faces on a screen so quickly that consciously people couldn't tell what they were seeing, but later on they picked those faces out of a lineup and viewed them much more favorably than other faces that they hadn't seen. The more you're around, the more you're consistent, and the more you're giving in, people are going to like you so much more. So all those three things are going to add up to a tremendous amount of credibility for you. Now, even if you do that, though, you can't leave it to chance. Just because you're deeply committed to something doesn't mean that other people will necessarily see it. So sometimes you actually have to toot your own horn, or better yet, is let somebody toot your horn for you, because that's much more credible. So think of commitment almost like a credential that you've earned yourself, but credentials are best coming from other people. Now, just a couple of caveats here because commitment also has some downsides. First of all, don't be so committed, don't be so passionate about your topic that you become boring to other people. That people go, oh, here he comes again. He's talking about this thing. That's all he ever talks about. Okay, so watch out for that. Second is don't brag about everything that you've accomplished based on what you've done. Let your actions speak for themselves. And finally, don't look down on people that aren't as committed as you are. So you have to watch those things. But if you can keep those negatives out, commitment can be one of the best ways to demonstrate your credibility.